Hi, welcome. Today we are talking about fear, worry, and anxiety. And we're talking about what is the difference and what to do about it, how to bust out of it. So, fear, worry, anxiety, these are words that we confuse often. We can substitute one for the other, but it's actually important to make a distinction because when we're aware of what we're feeling, then we can make a choice. We can discern what it is that is interrupting our natural flow, right? Even though we think that it is the same thing often, and they're used really interchangeably, um, it's pretty different. It's actually quite different. And today we're going to be talking about what exactly is worry, what is anxiety, and what is fear. There are subtle differences. And fear, worry, anxiety. So, when is a situation when you have felt that fear? Was it fear of loss? Was it fear of FOMO, fear of missing out? Fear of embarrassment is another one. We're going to go through a whole kind of a fun paradox about fears, and we will be doing that towards the end. But in the meantime, we often confuse these words, fear, worry, anxiety, but they're really not the same, and when you are aware of the differences, then you can discern what it is that's interrupting, your natural flow. And that brings you to a choice point of what can you do about it. So I love the expression from Dr. Dan Siegel. He says, you can name it to tame it. And that's the same with all of these subtle differences. Again, when you know what it is, then you're equipped to decide what you're going to do, what you're actually going to do with it. And so today we'll define these states and give you ways to deal, and also a fun exercise at the end so that you can discover yourself in a deeper way. So let's jump in. So fear, what comes to mind when you experience fear? Or even when you use that word, I'm afraid, I'm feeling fear. What's going on in your mind? The thing with fear is that it is a visceral reaction to an acute sense of danger. So, for example, when you hear a sudden startling noise, it could be an explosion, it could be a gunfire, it could be a scream. What are some of the things that trigger that fear response in you? So, fear. You hear that loud noise. There's a child that runs in front of your car. You are in the grips of fear, right? And if it feels close, and it often does, your senses are on high alert. Your amygdala, that part of your brain that deals with fight, flight, or freeze, anybody know that one? That kicks in full gear. And what the thing is that fear is your innate capacity. You are born with that. That's, in a way, it's a gift, actually, because it allows you to be alert. It allows you to be tuned in. It allows you to be aware. And that's a good thing. It wakes you up to be fully present, to what is going on around you. And there are times when we need that. So if you're walking into, that empty parking lot, or you're, debating whether to get in that elevator, and there's kind of like a strange person or the energy is not just right, that's your fear. That's your intuition that is coming in, and it helps you actually deal with the situation. So that's fear. So I'd love to hear if you have ever connected with your intuition when you knew that fear was coming in and you just sensed that something wasn't right. Okay, now let's jump into worry. Worry has to do with a specific problem that that is pretty much on your mind, that has bothered you mentally. It's defined as allowing one's mind to dwell on difficulty or troubles. You know, you're you're worried when you're pondering a mental problem. You know, I'm worried I'll mess up my presentation, for example. So you know, I have grown up with a master worrier, my mom. She has her PhD in worrying. I mean, I think that's her default. So I know what it is to be around people that are plagued with worrying. Um, and it's a heavy burden to bear, you know, to actually live with that. And it's also a habit, right? It can be a habit of worrying, and that's something that we can actually change. So that is the good news. But to make the distinction that, okay, I'm stuck in worrying. What are you worried about? Are you worried that you will mess up your presentation? Are you worried that you're going to be late for a plane? Usually worry is something quite specific. It's quite specific. And what does that mean? It means that you can have a solution to it. It's a problem, a mental problem. So for example, for the plane, you can say, okay, I'm going to leave 15 minutes earlier for the plane. Or for the presentation, you know, you can say, okay, I'm going to give some more time to practice the parts that are a little bit I'm not sure about, you know. Now, let us jump to anxiety. Whew, anxiety is kind of a different animal. Let me ask you about worry. One more question. Send me a heart if worry has ever gotten you to be better prepared for something important. So I'm trying to highlight some of the positive aspects of fear, you know, being alert, of worry, getting yourself to take action to solve a problem and be better prepared. So has that ever worked for you? You know? Now, let's turn into anxiety. Because anxiety, whereas worry can be somewhat specific, you know, you worry about something, anxiety, on the other hand, is more vague. It's more like, oh, I get paralyzed when I have to speak or in front of people. That's a common one. Or I'm uncomfortable on planes. Traveling just makes me anxious, you know. It's vague. It's not within your control. That's an important distinction, right? And you can often feel it in your body, like your body is tensing up or your heartbeat is racing or something like that. So anxiety on the positive side, nobody likes anxiety, right? But on the positive side, what is the message of the emotion? And that's something that's really important to ask, ask ourselves. So anxiety is telling us that something is off. It could be in your relationships. It could be in your work-life balance, or it could be in how you are treating yourself, you know, and maybe ignoring the anxiety can have a short-term, yeah, you know, keep on, carry on. But it's part of you that's asking you for some attention, some love, some consideration. Something needs to be recalibrated, right? And I wonder, and let me know, you could say me, if anxiety has ever caused you to look at a situation and find a better way. And that is the gift within anxiety, right? So what to do? What to do when you are experiencing any of these? And one could say, you know, um, in some cases it's a spectrum, because if we ignore our fears, ignore our worries, they can turn into anxiety. So number one is be present for what you are feeling. Pay attention. Don't shove it down and ignore it. As we said, short term, okay, but these things will come back and come out in surprising ways, right? So another thing is be tender with yourself and allow yourself to feel the fears and hold them as you would imagine a small puppy or a small kitten. You make it safe for yourself to admit how you feel. And in that way, you allow that feeling to emerge, to come out. You want to, feelings can be, they need to come out. They need to be discerned because they all have energy and they all have messages for you. Get into action. That's the next thing, and move forward. Think of what is one small thing that you can do to shift your state. Another thing is talk to a friend or a professional when it's really acute and gain a new perspective. Sometimes we get tunneled into thinking that this is all there is, but other people have different perspectives, and I'm sure that when you have spoken to friends, you can gain a new way of looking at it. So also with these kinds of emotions, right? Now, another thing, and this is what I'm excited to share with you, is journaling. You can journal it out and gain insight and get to the root of the issues. If that's something that you have some practice in, because that is, sometimes it can be magic because you get insight that you don't know where it's coming from. And it's so wise, it's so smart. Guess what? It's coming from you, right? So here's a fun journal challenge that I want to share with you. And it's from my book, Emotional Advantage, Embracing All Your Feelings to Create a Life You Love. There's one chapter on fear, of course, and there's a chapter on anxiety. So one way to get to know yourself better is just by writing down these questions and just allow time, just write and don't judge it. Just get in there and see what comes out. So now take out your journal or take out a piece of paper or just even listen to this. And I want you to, we're going to talk about paradoxes of fear, or what is generally known as fear. So I'm going to give you two sides of what we generally call fear. And depending on what's going on, you might find yourself at one side one day, at the opposite side the next, and somewhere in the middle, maybe 15 minutes later. It can change that fast. It can even be like a roller coaster ride. This is something, remember, it can change. And I want to give you two things. Okay, so fear of success on one side, fear of failure on the other. If you had to draw a line and just say, where am I today? Are you closer to the fears of success, of everything working out, or the fear of failure, of it just going downhill, right? So that's one thing, right? Number two is fear of uncertainty. That's fear of trying something new on one side. So are you closer to that? Are you feeling more of that today? Or are you feeling more of, not at all that. I'm more concerned with being stuck in a rut. That's more where I am right now. So where are you on that one? Fear of uncertainty or fear of being stuck in a rut? Number three, are you fearing being swallowed by others' needs? Like everybody wants a piece of you. You have no time for yourself. Can't have a moment to breathe. Is that you today? Or are you feeling a fear of not being needed, which is another thing? That is, a totally different thing. Then you actually want to connect with more people. So where are you at now today? Number four is a fear of standing out, going full out into your dreams of going for it. Or are you more worried about playing it small? Like that's something that you don't want to do. You don't want to play it small. Okay. Next is the fear of commitment. How do you feel about that? Is that alive and active for you, or is it more the fear of being alone, right? And then another one, number six, is fear of not having any time. Natalie, I like that, is pondering. Fear of not having any time, or the fear of being bored. And number seven is the fear of being hurt in a relationship, which can prompt you to make a move, or the fear of never taking a risk on love. And finally, the fear of freedom. If freedom seems daunting to you, or what if I had all this freedom and what would I do with it? Or the fear of having too many boundaries, feeling stuck or caged. What is it for you? So these are very subtle things, and they're things that we don't often look about. But in this conversation about fear, I want to share that with you as kind of a deeper dive and a way to look at it in a more nuanced way. So talking today about the differences between fear, which can be more of an instinctive amygdala response, fight, flight, or freeze. We're lucky to have that instinct actually, because it helps us to be alert. The habit of worry, usually it's about something specific and we can take action on that. And then the message of anxiety, when that can come in. And that can tell us that, hey, we need, like Paul, we need to make a change in our lives. It's like loud and clear, blazing, something needs to shift. So, I invite you to look at those. Even this next week, ask yourself, is this fear? Is this worry? Is this anxiety? And what can I do about it? Because you, as always, have the answers inside of yourself. Or else reach out, chat with a friend. You'll get a new perspective. So I'm so happy to have been here with you and to have, been able to share some of these more subtle language things, because when we can discern what it is, name it, we can tame it. And you all have that ability. So Looking forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, sending much love. And as always, take care of yourself. Be kind to one another. And remember, you have the power to change a life, starting with your own. So much love. See you next time. Bye for now.